Alright, what's up everybody? Today we're talking about my beloved camera. And no, it's not the Pocket 6K. We're talking about my Sony a6500. This camera has been through just about everything with me. It's been to Iceland, it's been to Yosemite, Mammoth, it's been through it all, and it's been a killer camera. And today we're going to talk about how I set up my Sony to shoot video. When I first got this camera, I customized it, and Sony has a handful of things that you can customize your camera with. When I first got this camera back in 2015, I messed with this camera a bit just to see what kind of tools I would use the most and what tools I would favor and other tools I wouldn't like. And early on, I figured out the tools that I loved, and I made presets on this camera, and I never had to change them. Sometimes I'll change like the frame rates and like resolution and like white balance I'm shooting in, but all the custom tools that I did in this, I haven't changed since 2015. So it's worked out great for me. If you have any kind of Sony, I'm sure this will do you good. So with that, let's get into it. Let's see how I set up my Sony a6500 for video. Alright, so we have the a6500 here with the 16-70 Zeiss. Yeah, this has been my kit for like 4 or 5 years. I have the Peak Design straps that I use. The Peak Design strap, I think it's a Slide Light. That's what I end up using. It's a pretty good strap. It's been the only strap I've used. No issues with it so far. So yeah, let's turn the a6500 on. So right now I have it in manual mode, which is where I have it the majority of the time for when I shoot photos and video. I have preset 1, preset 2, and this is where we're going to be at primarily today, is preset 1 and 2. Preset 1 is my 1080p 60 frames per second setting. So I have, anytime I need slow motion, I'll pull up this one, and then my number 2 is my 4K 24. So yeah, so let's open up the menu here. Let's cruise over. So this is how you set your presets, is by pressing memory. You set up your camera the way that you want it, and then you go to this setting here, and then you can either preset it to 1 or 2. So for focus mode, I always use continuous autofocus, and then for focus area, I always do zone. You can do wide or center or like a little spot, but I find that zone works out pretty good because you can move it around like that into 9 different spots. So we'll keep cruising. ISO, I'll usually rock it 200 to 400. So we'll just adjust that. So 200 to 400 for ISO. Metering, multi. Yeah, it's looking all good there. White balance, I've actually transitioned to shooting daylight. I used to shoot auto, and it shows you that I haven't used this camera for video in a while, because I was shooting on auto white balance. But when you change scenes, sometimes the camera will go from like a cooler look to a warmer look, and it's kind of hard to grade when it transitions like that. I'd rather just have it at 1 Kelvin, and right now it's daylight. And then my picture profile is Cine 4, and I use that for both. I used to shoot C-Log, don't really shoot it much anymore, but I'll be making a video soon of my Cine 4 settings and my S-Log 2 settings, so look for that. Peaking, I always go high, red. Manual focus assist, I have that on. For the smile and face detect, I always have that on. I find that Sony does a really great job of locking in focus on people's faces, and I use that for photo and video. It works out great. So now we get into our video settings. So I always shoot, for this setting at least, just HD 60 at the highest setting because you want the best bitrate. AF drive speed, normal. Tracking sensor, normal. Always have audio recording. Wind noise reduction, I actually don't put on. Then marker display, you could put this on and have like your safe guides, like if you want to shoot in like crop for anamorphic, if you want to crop for social at like 1:1 or 5:4, you can do that, but I never really do that because the screen on this camera is so small anyways. I always disable release without card, because if I don't have a card in it, it'll end up shooting for ages and I won't be saving them. So that just saves that. Steady shot, always have on, just auto. I've never had any issues with that. Sick. Now we're getting into some good stuff here. So zebras I actually don't use. I just use the histogram and just expose by that. Auto review off. So with these settings here, I actually have these the same for 1 and 2, so HD and 4K. So let's go into our custom settings. Custom button 1 I actually have set for movie. Usually you have the record button on the right side of this camera. I find that kind of weird when you're holding it, so I move that to custom button 1. then custom button 2 is my focus mode. So with the focus mode, you could change it between continuous, manual focus, or anything else. If I want to have manual focus in my video, I'll just press C2 and I can get to manual focus. And for custom button 3, I have it set to the presets. So I can slide through 1, 2, and then go all the way over to these. I've never really messed with these. I usually primarily just shoot 1 or 2. So C3, I don't really use that often. I actually had it as white balance back in the day, but because I only shot auto white balance, I was like, I don't really need it, but maybe I'll reset it back to white balance. Cool, going back to that. Center button, it's focus standard. Left button, drive mode. Right button, ISO. So these two buttons have stayed the same. Focus standard, I can move the focus around just by pressing the middle. Actually works out pretty good. No issues there. So that's that for the first page. And then we have exposure comp pressing down. That doesn't change. So now we have the AEL button and the AF/MF. Okay, so the AEL, when you press that, it'll focus. It'll tell it to like grab focus. And then for the AF/MF, I have it set for that same button. So it's the focus standard there. Same as that. So that's actually pretty redundant. I should probably change that. I think I just want to change this to white balance. Let's just keep that. So there's white balance. And the focus hold button, I just have that as focus hold, which is this. All right. So now we go down to custom key PB. So this is for playback. So for custom button 1, have it as rotate. Custom button 2, index, send to smartphone. I have never used these during playback. I don't know anyone who has. So I don't really mess with that. And now for the function menu. This is something I've actually customized quite a bit. It's this button right here. So if we just go into this menu, we can see that I have it set for center lock on AF, my grid lines, my white balance, self timer, smile detect, focus area, steady shot, peaking, zebras, silent shooting, picture profile, and audio record levels. These are the settings I end up using the most, so I figured I would put them into the function menu. So you can see page 1 and page 2. Pretty straightforward there. You can just roll through and change any settings that you want through it. I use the function menu pretty much every time I shoot. Movie button, always. So even if you're in photo mode, if you want to jump straight to video mode, you got that button there. When you press that button there, it'll automatically pull you into that movie set right there. So yeah, that's how I set up my camera for video. So when I actually shoot video with this camera, you can see that these settings here, I have, you can change them through display, but I always have my audio levels and my histogram because I want to see if like my levels peak at all so I can adjust the settings. And then for the histogram, of course, you want to get your exposure right. But you can press up and actually use this leveler out quite a bit. You press up again, there's all your settings. You got 2 hours and 19 minutes of recording time on this SD card. Press up again, clear, press up. These settings make shooting so much easier, just having all those settings at my fingertips, especially the ones I use the most. There'd be no point to have it set to the preset setting where I end up not using those settings at all. So yeah, that's how I set up my Sony a6500 for video. If you have any questions about the Sony, if you want to see any other videos covering this, just keep me posted. And that is the Sony a6500. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys learned a lot. It's always good to customize your camera, whether you have a Sony, Canon, Nikon, Blackmagic. Yeah, I highly recommend customizing your cameras. It makes shooting go a lot faster because you know what settings you end up using the most. And that's what tools are for, making things go quicker and more efficient so you can get the job done quicker and get it delivered. Comment, like, subscribe. Comment down below what kind of video you want to see next, whether it's a tutorial, short film, little social ad, anything. I might make a video on how I make these social ads and those little gifts that I do. So it's on my list. We'll see. So with that, take it easy, guys. Peace.